Thibadeau law of cognitive computation, with experimental evidence. Here is the law I am proposing. For all predications communicated between brains, there are induced intuited predications IT and logically deduced predications LTAT that are intended or judged cognitively as lies -1, truth 1, or uncertain 0, in a range -1 and 1 at time t. When IT equal to LT as a predication and truth value, then IT dt less than LE dt. It is always true that induced intuitions are computed for generation and perception more rapidly than logical deductions for the successfully communicated predication where truth is assigned. This is because intuitions require no logical or rational proof, and the brain most directly computes intuitions from brain information content memory in a single step, while logic requires multiple brain computation steps, any of which may sequentially combine inductive intuition predications or deductive logic predications. The seminal experiment confirming this hypothesized law was developed in my 1976 PhD dissertation on memory for causal relations within and between sentences. The short abstract that I wrote in 1976 summarizes the critical set of experiments in human recognition memory that make the case for the law. Can we describe in psychological terms how intersentence relations are rapidly interpreted? Given a sentence juxtaposition like, "The cook threw the knife, John ducked." How is it that most people readily see that the cook throwing the knife caused John to duck? This question is regarded as a question of how memory is organized to accommodate the process of interpretation. Previous studies suggest the causal relation reflects information contributed from memory in the process of encoding one sentence in the conceptual context of the other. Our first problem is to determine what form the causal relation takes in conceptual memory after comprehension is achieved. The sentence, "The cook threw the knife," is commonly regarded as describing one event, but because that sentence asserts a causal relation, it can also describe two events, one causing the other, as in, "The cook did something which caused the knife to move." Is the first sentence taken as one event or two in the process of interpreting the causal relation between it and the sentence, "John ducked"? In an experiment, subjects read a sentence juxtaposition and are queried about causal ties between noun participants, for example, did the cook have an effect upon the knife? Did the knife have an effect upon John, etc.? The dependent measures are the probability and speed of a yes response. The results suggest the sentence describing the cause is interpreted as describing a single event. Subjects are equally certain that the cook had an effect upon the knife and upon John, but somewhat less certain that the knife had an effect upon John. Furthermore, they are most rapid in verifying the asserted cook-knife relation and least rapid in verifying the knife-John relation. Apparently, seeing that the cook had an effect upon John does not require consideration of the knife's causal involvement. In propositional terms, these results are taken to suggest that an inferred cause predicate may embed entire sentence structures as arguments. Working on this assumption, an investigation was made of recognition processes which permit the interpretation of intersentence causal ties that extend across propositional embeddings. Anderson and Bauer 1973 proposed a propositional boundary to human recognition processes. Therefore, an experiment following theirs was undertaken to show the conditions under which their formulation was inadequate. These conditions were established for inferred causal ties embedding sentences. The special assumption necessary to predict the experimental outcomes within Anderson and Bauer's framework also gave their model the capability, in principle, to infer intersentence causal ties in comprehension. The experiments thus dealt with the results of comprehending the sentence juxtapositions, and speculations centered upon how the process of comprehending the sentence juxtapositions is to be resolved. Here is the entire dissertation with full experimental details, including all the materials needed to replicate the experiments that I ran in 1974 and 1975. The critical experiments can be replicated as a real-time class laboratory exercise using just cell phones given the improved state of computing now, 50 years later. The critical experiment is the had an effect on recognition probe experiment, which demonstrates that a transitive causal chain can be intuited bypassing the actual logic, and that intuition is confirmed faster than the individual causal events needed to establish the transitive relationship logically. Furthermore, the hierarchical cognitive computation manifesting the propositional intuitions in memory is easily confirmable by any normal human above about 14 years old. I believe this experiment, which can be easily replicated in any human natural language for any groups of humans, is necessary and sufficient to establish the hypothesis made clear in my proposed law of cognitive computation.